Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 21 of the Renovation and Outdoor Living Show. And I've got to be honest, it's time to get some theme music into this, okay? Ideas, please. Give us some ideas for theme music. I think we need to play something a bit because otherwise it just comes up very abruptly. And I know that you could probably hear me heavy breathing just before we come on live onto Facebook as well. So there's a thought for the day. Anyway, really good to see you all. It is Tuesday, of course, the 16th of June, and it was a cracking weekend here in Auckland. We had a wonderful rugby match I managed to get along to. And also I went to see the opening of Commercial Bay. Fabulous new building in central Auckland. So one or two positives about growth in the future beginning to sort of appear in New Zealand, which is really cool. Now, Friday's theme, we were talking about from the ground up. And first of all, we spoke to Andrea Bothner, who was from the Wooden Floor Company, literally starting at the ground. She'd been there for over 22 years. And it's about all things wood for the floor. What I learned is how warm wood is as an option, because I was worried it might be quite cold, but of course it's naturally warmer than tiles or synthetics. And also you can install your underfloor heating under the wood, and it's easy to clean, which reminds me of our prize package. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. Then we spoke to Nick Lico. He's the architect who runs a Refresh franchise in Wellington, and he's the big project man, $1 million plus. And so it was good to talk to him about, because he explained to us that the industry recommends that you allow 30% extra in your budget for mistakes, for when things go wrong. And I think it's probably historic, isn't it, that we've always thought, everything's going to cost at least 30% more. Well, Nick told us that he felt this was completely unnecessary as long as you get the planning right. And with these big projects, that is key, because when you're spending at least $1 million, 30% is hundreds of thousands of dollars, of course. So he said, you've got to get your planning right. You've got to get the step-based system, and you've got to follow it closely. And it's essential to make sure these projects work, because with his clients, they don't really want to turn around and say, why have you just spent $300,000 or $400,000, which we didn't expect you to spend? So to today's show, well, we're looking at wellness and sustainability. And first, we want to talk about wellness architecture. Okay, this is all about sustainable design. Now, Jade Hurst is founder and creative director of Good Space. She's now apparently just the 8th person in New Zealand to qualify from the International Well-Build Institute in the US. And then she took that on to form Good Space last year. She's works across both corporate and residential projects. And Jade, good to see you this afternoon. I'll just wait till you pop up. There you are. Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Really good, thanks. I'm fascinated about this. The fact that there is an International Well-Build Institute. How did you even stumble across that?
Well, listen, I actually seeking out a new career, looking to get out of my agency that I owned for 12 plus years there. I was seeking wellness myself, actually, and also have for years and years this intense fascination with interiors and architecture. So I really saw, as I was researching, those two worlds colliding really beautifully, actually, in a career. And the more I looked into it, the more wellness architecture popped up, and the more the International Well-Build Institute became the way that I received my credentials.
Yeah. So you're telling me you Googled the two things you were interested in. You put wellness here and you put building there, and well-build came up, and you went, oh, I'll go and do a course there. Jade, you just mentioned to me wellness architecture. So that's obviously a term which encapsulates all the sort of sustainable design.
Yeah, I mean, if we think about how intimately connected we are with our buildings, we're actually a lot more connected than we realize. So wellness architecture is all about, the improving of air quality and water and light and just nice, beautiful natural light. It's all about mitigating loud sounds in an environment and effectively creating a beautiful home or office or school or hospital, whatever the build might be, that actually enhances your physical and mental health.
It's interesting because I think commercial buildings are doing a lot of this now, because they are sort of, employers are feeling obliged to make sure that they put the well-being of their staff at the forefront now. We know there's a good, and rightfully there's a good momentum there. But it's interesting that residential space is already, I mean, what sort of trends in design are we seeing to be able to encapsulate all these the core elements?
Well, I mean, So through the International Wellbuild Institute, you can't actually certify a residential home, but there's no reason why you couldn't apply a lot of this stuff to residential. So if you think about there's wants and there's actual needs. So if you want to have a beautiful, healthy home, great. There's lots of really great ways to bring biophilic design, designing nature into your space, essentially using non-toxic materials, beautiful elements and patterns and textures you might find in nature. But then also families might have a real need. I mean, they may have sensitivities, chemical sensitivities, asthma, a real concern. So it moves from just a purely want to have a healthy home to a real immediate need as well.
That's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think a lot of us during this past few months, in lockdown, in our family environments, and we're having to work from these environments now, we've stopped and we've had a good look at our environments when we're there 24/7. It's not a case that you can just put up with something because you're going to be leaving and go to the office or whatever. So, I mean, have you got a sense with your client base that there is this, that people are reassessing their well-being when they're when they're at home or at work still?
I mean, look, totally. It's a really strange time, isn't it, that we've spent all this time at home, taken ourselves out of the office environment and sort of been sense checking, I guess. Are our homes and now our offices optimal? Do they actually give to our health and wellness, or do they really do the latter? Do they take away? And, certainly there's been a real surge in this conversation. Our mainstream media here are actually now starting to elevate this conversation. It's becoming more mainstream, which is really, it's fascinating. Actually, it's taken this long to get to being a normal conversation here. But yes, absolutely. We're spending so much time at home. We're looking at those little things that niggle us. We're assessing our house is quite loud with all these people in it. How do I find my quiet space? How might I find a productive zone to do my work? And then also from a commercial standpoint, I've looked into and I've started a lot of conversations now with that sector around how do we move people now into this hybrid situation and make them feel really comfortable returning back to work? How might they improve the health of their employees, and how might they mitigate that anxiety about coming back to their office spaces now?
That's so interesting, because we've heard a lot about this anxiety. It's nothing to do with, am I going to be able to keep my hands clean? It goes way beyond that, which is what you're talking about, is that, am I going to feel genuinely sort of safe and productive in my workspace? So how do we compare? You say that our mainstream media is getting this now. How do we compare globally? Are we potentially, given the fact that we're in a situation where we can actually, we can put into practice. Is that my phone ringing? There you go. I hope no one else can hear that. Of course you can. But anyway, sorry about that. So can you still see me?
You're a bit sideways,
I just lost you all. Okay, technical issues here. My well-being has just gone to the side. Okay, there we are. Sorry about that. That's the downside. That's the downside of a home office and using your phone as an entire TV studio. But so, do we have an opportunity, given the fact we can put things into practice now, and vast parts, certainly of the Anglo world, are still sitting at home? Can we show some leadership here?
I really believe so, and that's why I was quite excited to see people start having these conversations. It started around air quality, actually, in our media. I noticed that's obviously super important, but it's really the most obvious way that we can enhance our spaces. But look, certainly we are so well poised here in New Zealand to champion wellness architecture. There is definitely much more of an awareness now and a conversation happening. But certainly just where we're located and our climate, our really great people that we have around us, all this technology that we have, and these really beautiful materials and ingenuity of Kiwis, really. But also really interestingly, our Māori heritage and our that affinity and that beautiful parallel we have with Te Ao Māori, which is all about all living and non-living things interconnected. I mean, that perfectly speaks to wellness architecture, all about the living being us and our nature we bring into the spaces, and then our non-living being our built environment and our stuff, right? That they're just so interconnected. So there's actually a lot of really beautiful parallels skills that we have here in New Zealand that are actually really ingrained. We just have to actually elevate this conversation now.
Yeah, isn't that fascinating? You're right. It is sort of such an essential core of New Zealand, and we are now recognizing that very much so. Hey, that's really good to thank you, Jade, for giving us some time today. Really interesting to learn a wee bit about wellness architecture. So that is, of course, Jade. Now, Jade Hurst is it's called Good Space. Have a look on the website and see where you can go. But really interesting stuff. Thanks very much indeed. Good to see you. And I'm sorry about the sideways shot for a little bit there. Now, I wonder if you know how I was talking about the wooden flooring company. I wonder if the wooden flooring over synthetic flooring, I mean, that could be an example of biophilia, which is one of the terms Jade used to describe us sort of getting in touch with natural shapes and products and that sort of thing, or connection with nature, I guess. So the reason why I mentioned that is to remind you of the prize draw this week. Now, the wooden floor care package, when we spoke to Andrea on Friday, she gave us this awesome prize. And it is the floor care package. Okay, wooden floor care package. So once you've got your floor in with Andrea, then you need one of these. So you get a spray mop kit, a floor care kit, 8 felt floor protectors, some small, some large. You get a litre of floor cleaner, you get a spray bottle, and you get another extra spray bottle for the spray mop. And that's about $300, over $300 worth of prizes to keep your wooden floors in top condition. And what you needed to do to enter this was to tell us how many brands of wooden flooring the wooden floor company sells. Okay, now if you're watching, you might remember. If you haven't, then you can go onto Facebook after this, you have a look and watch back Friday's show, and just chuck it into the comments section here on Facebook Live, and we'll enter you into the draw for that wooden floor care package. And if you don't want to enter the floor care package, just put a comment on here anyway. Tell us what sort of music I should be thinking about playing at the beginning and the end. Now, let's continue with our theme of well-being and sustainability. We want to talk about sustainable design with Liv. Now, Liv McFarlane is the director and designer at Undercurrent. And this is a multifaceted spatial design studio with an architectural sensibility. Or Liv, at least that's what your website told me. Hopefully you'll pop up. Hi, Liv, nice to see you. So,
hi, Gordon.
explain this multifaceted spatial design studio with architectural sensibility.
Yeah, sure. I have a background in architecture, so I studied a Bachelor of Architecture and worked overseas a lot in spatial and set design. And since returning to New Zealand about 5 or 6 years ago, I've been working predominantly in commercial architecture, and I have this fascination with the interior environment and us spending, 80% of our time indoors. So Undercurrent predominantly design commercial environments, but also any spatial environment. So anything that's different from, installations to sets to commercials or residential environments with a point of difference. So, yeah.
What was behind you starting? I mean, this is a new company, isn't it? Relatively new. So what was behind you actually starting this?
I have a fascination for designing with the human at the center and the activities that humans undertake in a spatial environment and implementing that into the built environment. So that launched me to start Undercurrent at the start of this year. So
do you know Jade? Because you guys would be able to talk for days on this.
We've only talked on the phone quite a bit, but we can.
Well, it's good to connect you because I imagine you guys could do a lot of complementary work with each other. So you mentioned that it was mainly commercial initially, but you do see this close link in sustainable design principles with residential. Hence the fact we saw one of your slides just now. What does it say? Resimercial, or was it condensal? I can't remember. But yeah, so tell us about this link.
So because I predominantly design commercial environments, I really wanted to, with the renovation show, I wanted to see this from a residential perspective. And throughout my experience in commercial, I'm just seeing that these boundaries between commercial and residential are just becoming so blurred at the moment, which sort of gives us this idea of resimercial, which has been around for a while. I didn't coin the term, but
right.
Yeah.
I like the term. You should have owned it. I wouldn't have known. But yeah, somebody would have picked you up. How much has the pandemic opened our eyes or forced us to open our eyes?
Hugely, I think. Particularly, I believe, like in design, we have sort of these 4 pillars, and in commercial design, we have a place where we sleep, which is our hotels, our motels, in the workplace, our offices, and where we eat and play. And then these 4 pillars are also sort of the same pillars that come under the residential umbrella. So, you know, for example, I'm seeing these trends in commercial architecture and hotels where people want that authentic, bespoke, local experience, and not the standard cookie cutter hotels that are the same all around the world. With Airbnb now, people can get that local experience. So I'm finding that a lot of the hotels are of a more residential aesthetic. Same with the workplace environment. We have open communal kitchens and shared workspaces that we can adapt to depending on the type of work that we're undertaking. Restaurants are also, they're not just about serving food, it's about the experience, and from, you know, from where the food comes from right through to like how it's served in the environment that it's served within.
That's a huge thing in New Zealand as well, isn't it? That whole that experience of where the food comes from, how it's served, the whole environment of it. I mean, I think our restaurant trade's been sort of leading the way on that a wee bit. What are the key design tools you use in commercial that then are also relevant to residential design?
So I think that these are the tools that we use in residential would be adaptability and ensuring that you're future-proofing your spaces, that they're adaptable. And as you said before, what have we learned from COVID? And it's that these 4 pillars, we need them all under one umbrella, and we're so time poor at the moment. So it's essential that we design spaces that we can make an awesome coffee or share an incredible dinner with friends around the dinner table, and to bring the restaurant home, to bring the cafe home, the workplace, a yoga studio or a gym. And yeah, designing, as Jade said, bringing the outside in, the biophilic design, mimicking nature, biomimicry, and being also the process in which we design. Really use a thorough planning session at the start and see the interior as sort of a natural evolution, I guess, and it's not fixed, it's just always evolving as times evolve.
So you know about biophilia as well, do you? This is a natural sort of, this is your world, is it? How cool. Hey, tell me, so what, I mean, have you suddenly got busy? Yes,
we're busy at the moment. We've got projects, you know, with Zoom, and I use ArchiCAD, so I 3D model, and I'm able to sort of communicate with clients across the country through 3D software and Zoom. So it's amazing. I'm working across the whole country at the moment.
That's very cool indeed. Liv, thank you very much for giving us a little bit of your time to introduce us to Undercurrent. Sounds like a, yep, you're certainly going to be busy. But really good to meet you. That's Liv McFarlane there from Undercurrent, and we'll catch up again. Now, on Friday, I introduced this new feature. I still haven't had any suggestions for music, by the way, so I might just have to make something up. Might have to compose something by Friday. It could be a disaster. Now, on Friday, I introduced a new feature. It was called the Friday Top 10. And at the time we covered off, and it's going to be top 10 of anything and everything. I mean, we actually kept it vaguely sort of design related and renovation related on Friday, but next week it may be top 10 worst songs of all time. But we covered off the top 10 design fails on Friday for Friday's top 10. And I figured out actually it's better to say Tuesday's top 10 because that's alliteration and it's really trendy and it sounds good and it's been used for hundreds of years by writers and journalists. So today's Tuesday top 10, the top 10 tips for resale, okay, for selling your home. Now, these came to me courtesy of Barfoot and Thompson. And in 10th place, some of them make sense, but some of them are a bit surprising. In 10th place, and this is a new one, probably be energy wise, and it sticks with the theme of today, sustainability. Energy costs are rising, so buyers are loving insulation, heat pumps, double glazing, or knock yourself out with a project like this, solar panels all over the roof. to save you the money on the spa and the swimming pool. So number 10, be energy wise. Number 9, choose the right lighting. Some of which we've talked about on the show. Last week we were talking about this, the week before. You know, adding a moving windows or skylights can be really expensive, but light has such a huge effect on how attractive buyers find your home. And then of course there's the interior artificial lighting, like in this picture, enhancing the mood of your house with dimmers, statement lights, and the like. I mean, this picture's cluttered with them. It looks fantastic. Number 8, create space. Take out a wall. This is a basement conversion, and look at this, it's stunning. Take out a wall to make the place feel more spacious. Knock out the study, because you can probably put what you use the study for in a cupboard behind a sliding door in a corner or an alcove. Okay, create space. It'll enhance the value of your home no end. Number 7, home maintenance. Don't have rusts and rusty bits and leaks and dripping taps, because potential buyers, when they come around, they will notice this stuff. So get out your Cratchit and your Wangler and your wrench and tighten things up. Okay, home maintenance at number 7. Number 6, it's an obvious one, this one, indoor outdoor. Okay, it's a no-brainer. This is actually the house we saw for the lighting just now. What a stunning indoor outdoor flow. Okay, you've got to connect the interior living space with the exterior. Again, it's something we've talked about on the show so much of the time, how we're using year-round now the exterior as an additional living space. You want a spacious deck or a terrace out there, easy to get to. Number 5, so the top 5, choose the right flooring. Comes back to our wooden floors from last week. The reason why, it's just too big an area to hide. You know, if you can't afford new flooring, sand out the old. You know, get the carpets professionally cleaned, paint any unattractive particle board, whatever it is. Use rugs, but just remember, the flooring you can't hide. So choose the right flooring. It'll make a massive impact when you're reselling. Number 4, maximize your storage. Isn't this clever? Look at that understair storage system. Every nook and cranny, especially in the smaller houses, which is where this shot on the left obviously came from. And look at this. So I wonder what he does in there all day. And maybe the 2000 model airplanes might give us a clue, or she. Who knows? But there you go. And look at that. It's brilliant. So the idea here is look higher up for shelves and cupboards. They don't need to be at ground level or go all the way up the wall, but maximize your storage. Right. Top 3. And these won't come as a surprise. Well, the first 2 won't. Number 3 is upgrade the bathroom. We've been told this 100 times, haven't we? The bathroom, that's where you're going to get your dollars back. But there's also that factor, if you've got a really small place, and make sure you add a second bathroom or at least a second toilet. Nowadays, the buyers will expect this. Minimally 2 toilets. The days of just having 1 bathroom, 1 toilet are long gone. Number 2, the second most best tip for reselling your house, renovate the kitchen. Best return on the investment. And if it's too expensive, well, you don't necessarily have to replace the entire thing, maybe just a facelift, allowing buyers to add their stamp to it later. But having said that, if you get a really, really top renovation of your kitchen in, you're going to get the dollars back. And the top tip, and this is the one which did surprise me, because I thought it was going to be about kitchens, bathrooms, and outdoor spaces. The top tip is street appeal. Consider your street appeal. It's the first impression. It's going to go a long way. So cut back the overgrown trees, replace the tired lawns and the tired plants. Make the property look fresh and light. You know, if you get a landscaping company in to freshen up the front of your house, it's not going to cost an absolute fortune compared to what you may get as a result of doing that. There you go. Consider your street appeal. And that was our top 10 for this Tuesday. Tuesday's top 10 today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Let us know if you can come up with any ideas of what sort of music we might be able to use to introduce and close out the show. In the meantime, I'll look forward to seeing you again on Friday. Have a good week. Bye-bye.